Now, notice what they're not saying. They're not saying reparations, because right now they can see that there are phony individuals, mushmouths and B-vets and other assorted clowns. So a lot of that momentum, they're like, okay, well, we'll see if we can dodge that. And instead, let's confront the economic agenda, because that's not changing. So they are directly confronting we in the Black media and saying, okay, we're going to try to disarm your Black agenda principle by saying, hey, we accept that there needs to be a Black economic agenda. And no surprise, the billionaires who are in the race, Tom Steyer, and now Mike Bloomberg, former mayor of New York City, former Republican, now Democrat and former mayor of New York City. He's introduced his Black economic plan. He calls it the Greenwood Initiative, after Tulsa, Oklahoma, where the white supremacists went on a massacre of a prosperous Black enclave. Mike Bloomberg has conceded that the new Black media controls the narrative. He tried to come out at first with the same old bull jive. Let's talk about healthcare. Let's talk about renewable energy. Let's talk about all this other mess. That fell flat on its ass. And he said, okay, we got to deal with the nitty gritty here. It is about dollars for Black folk. The new Black media is watching. I don't want them to do me like they did Kamala Harris. So let me just come out from the beginning and say, where Black people are concerned, the focus should be on economics. Brothers and sisters from around the world, this is the result of a decade of work on our part, the last 5 years in particular. It didn't happen this year or last year. Don't let anybody lie to you and tell you this happened in a year. This is the result of a decade of consistent, steady, indefatigable, uncompromising effort. That we made sure that every time they showed up, we told them, cut the check. Every time they showed up, we said, where them dollars? Every time they showed up, we didn't change. We didn't compromise. We didn't vacillate. It was consistent. And now they're realizing that even though Black society is not 100% consistent on it, there's a large enough percentage of us who are. There are enough Black people saying the exact same thing. They're showing up at political rallies and we're saying the same thing. They're going on talk shows and we're saying the same thing. They're going and doing interviews and we're saying the same thing. They're talking to constituents and we're saying the same thing. Everybody's saying the same thing. Or at least enough of us are now. That it's no longer deniable. They watched Kamala Harris go from front runner to implosion, specifically because she attempted to deny this. The only people who were able to even hang in there slightly are the super establishment guys, white males, Joe Biden and Bernie Sanders, and the folk who are talking about Black folk and dollars. Those are the only ones able to still hang in there. And that brings me to Black Enterprise Magazine. Black Enterprise Magazine is a sham. You all remember years ago, I wrote an open letter to Black Enterprise Magazine explaining why I was not going to renew my subscription. They had made it clear that their magazine was no longer interested in promoting Black business and entrepreneurship, and it was instead focused on kissing ass of major corporations in the hopes of getting ad dollars, putting in useless, empty fluff articles listing the latest Black person who had been promoted to human resources manager of this and that corporation, which clearly is paid for by these corporations to say, hey, we're diversity. Take a look at the newest Negro that we put into that little Negro position that we've created at the company. And Black Enterprise Magazine, desperate for dollars, took it. And worst of all, Black Enterprise Magazine decided that it would change its focus from focusing on promoting Black business and instead change it to focusing on LGBT and feminism. some bright-minded idiot had the idea that neglecting black men, the majority of the business owners in black society, that's a problem. That promoting black men was a problem. And we need to stop focusing on black men so much as if things are going so great. We need to focus strictly on everybody else. And when I saw that turn begin to happen, I said, we're pulling the plug. We're pulling the plug. Earl Graves and Butch Graves, we're pulling the plug. Black Enterprise magazine today, for those of you who've seen it most recently, I mean, the damn thing's a comic book now. I mean, it used to be a big, thick thing. Now it's practically a Jehovah's Witness pamphlet. It's practically an issue of the Watchtower. But after Mike Bloomberg announced his Greenwood initiative, well, it should be no surprise that no less than Black Enterprise magazine, in an article by Selena Hill, came out just yesterday, actually, and listen to this. Now, I'm going to read most of this for you here. Don't worry, it won't be terribly long. I want you to read most of this and see what the hell went wrong. And there's something in particular. I want you to listen to all of this and listen if there's something you hear missing.
I'll do it now.
The article says the race to win the black vote is heating up. To court African Americans, a key voting bloc in the 2020 election, candidates vying for the Democratic nomination have rolled out sweeping reforms targeting black and brown communities, like Elizabeth Warren's $50 billion plan to invest in HBCUs. As you all know, that's a plan to nowhere. And Bernie Sanders' aggressive criminal justice overhaul. Now, this is just an outright lie by Black Enterprise magazine. There's nothing aggressive about it. So Black Enterprise magazine is letting you know they're kissing ass, hoping that they can get some ad dollars from the Elizabeth Warren campaign or Bernie Sanders campaign. They're not making articles and communicating in black people's interests. They're trying to communicate in their own by now just promoting outright lies and propaganda. This is a lie. And they know it, but they're so desperate for dollars. He goes on to say, in addition, former New York City Mayor Michael Bloomberg unveiled a plan to advance Black economic empowerment during MLK weekend. His initiative aims to create 1 million more African-American homeowners and invest $70 billion into 100 disadvantaged neighborhoods around the country. Another major pillar in the racial wealth plan is to help 100,000 Black business owners gain access to capital. Quote, the average Black family has only 10% of the wealth of the average white family for a variety of reasons. But the question is, what can you do about it? The Democratic contender told Black Enterprise. I'm a big believer that economic empowerment and education are the two real drivers in terms of trying to make this country much more egalitarian and tolerant. $70 billion in 100, quote, disadvantaged neighborhoods. Disadvantaged, didn't say Black, disadvantaged. People already, they're slipping in a little slippery language. First of all, 70 billion isn't nearly enough. Second of all, 100 neighborhoods. And then lastly, oh yeah, we'll also try to help 100,000 Black business owners gain access to capital. You're putting $70 billion in disadvantaged neighborhoods and then telling us we'll see if there's anything left over for Black business. Is this the way that Bloomberg presents business proposals to his white corporate buddies? Is this the way that he does when he approaches investment banks? Is this the way he talks? Or does he speak specifically about himself and his business? The story goes on to say, titled The Greenwood Initiative, Economic Justice for Black America. The proposal is named after an historic district in Tulsa, Oklahoma, which once housed the original Black Wall Street before it was burned down by an angry mob of white mobsters, during the 1921 race massacre. A little known atrocity that even Bloomberg admits he just discovered 3 months ago. So he's saying that he didn't know about the bombing of the Black Wall Street in Tulsa, Oklahoma. He didn't know about that until it happened in 1921. He didn't know about it until 2019, maybe from HBO's Watchmen series. A lot of folks learned about it from there. And that just goes to tell you, people, they're trying to erase our history altogether, starting with their atrocities against us. They're rewriting history and erasing the atrocities that they committed. So, of course, how are you going to argue for reparations if nobody teaches you that there was ever an atrocity committed against you? The former mayor announced the plan at the site of the massacre that killed and displaced thousands of African Americans and left the once affluent Black enclave in ruins. Quote, I do believe the next president has to make the issue of economic equality a top priority. And there's no better place for me to talk about it than right here in Greenwood, Bloomberg told parishioners at a packed Sunday service held at the Vernon Chapel AME Church. So already he starts off with the foolery. There's no place to make economic inequality a top priority. Next president has to make economic equality a top priority. Not Black economic inequality, but economic inequality. In addition to denouncing the systemic bias that has blocked African Americans from building wealth, the business tycoon also acknowledged how white privilege gave him a leg up as he was building his $60 billion empire. Days after his visit, Bloomberg hit an all-time high in the polls. According to Morning Consult's latest poll, he rose to 10% nationally among Democratic voters, putting him in fourth place behind former Vice President Joe Biden, Bernie Sanders, and Elizabeth Warren. Bloomberg is also now ahead of Mayor Pete Buttigieg, Senator Amy Klobuchar, and entrepreneur Andrew Yang. So first of all, this Morning Consult poll, Professor Truth did a great piece months and months ago talking about the absolute erroneous nature of that thing. And we're all not even sure where it came from. But if you take it at face value, what does this communicate to these people? Talking about Black economics is the way that you get boosted in the polls. So understand, they got the message loud and clear. Now, of course, they're going to try to pivot. They're going to try to pivot and they're going to try to spin. And they're going to try to pull a bait and switch. But we're not going to allow that to happen because you haven't gotten our support yet. They go on to say, Gregory Robinson, a Tulsa-based community activist and the director of family and communications ownership at the Met Cares Foundation, says he left the Vernon AME Church service feeling better about Bloomberg. Well, Black Enterprise magazine is going out of its way to kiss Bloomberg's ass and talk about how great things went over. This is what happens with the old Black media. They have mismanaged themselves into complete whoredom. They have to whore themselves to everybody because they have mismanaged themselves into oblivion. Now, this Gregory Robinson says, when you see a billionaire stand up in a church like the historic Vernon AME Church and deliver a message that speaks to the need to make good or make right some of the wrongs that have been done to African-American citizens of this country, that certainly is a hopeful message to hear, Robinson told Black Enterprise. Robinson also applauded Bloomberg's multifaceted initiative, which would require bias training for police, teachers, and federal contractors, and address voter suppression by cracking down on voter ID laws, poll purging, and gerrymandering. Nevertheless, now you all know what I think about those. How do you bias train a white supremacist? You can't counsel them. You can only fire them and put them in prison. You don't negotiate with terrorists. The article goes on to say, nevertheless, Robinson, who's been fighting to revitalize Black Wall Street, says he welcomed Bloomberg's message, but received it with cynical ears and a questioning eye. Quote, he was in charge when stop and frisk was instituted, he said, referring to the notorious police practice that Bloomberg implemented that disproportionately targeted Black and brown New Yorkers. This is Black Enterprise magazine. Black Enterprise magazine, if you were reading Latino magazine, would they be saying black and brown? I want you to think about that for a few moments. If this were Latino magazine, would they be saying black and brown? Quote, it sounded good, and I will give him credit for having the guts and stepping out there and saying it, but it's yet to be seen if something like that will actually come to pass or whether it's just a tool to get votes, Robinson added about Bloomberg's Greenwood initiative. If elected president, Bloomberg says the biggest challenge to implementing his economic plan wouldn't be funding it, but rather achieving a consensus of political willpower to execute it. Quote, $70 billion, to put it in perspective, is about $6 per household across the United States. And it's not a lot, he told BE. It's not one of those things like Medicare for all, where you're talking about not billions, but trillions of dollars. So when Bernie Sanders talks about Medicare for all and Andrew Yang and them, just remember for Medicare for all, which will only really benefit white folk, because we already see how Medicare works. Yeah, they can find trillions for that, and they want to talk trillions for that. When it comes to reparations, all of a sudden, it's too expensive. Keep that in mind. The article goes on to say, although Bloomberg has a way to go to court the black vote, polls show he's one of the most unpopular candidates among African Americans, some in the black business community are singing his praises. So Black Enterprise is back to kissing his ass again. People, this is just a kiss up piece by Black Enterprise magazine. They're here to show the white political establishment, your ad dollars are well spent with us. We will propagandize the rest of the Negroes for you. She just said what she just said about stop and frisk. First, she had a guy praising Bloomberg, then put in a little blurb about stop and frisk. So you can say, okay, well, we did mention it. You can't accuse us of not mentioning it. You mentioned it in passing and then went right back to, and by the way, business owners really like Mike Bloomberg. People, this is why the old black media, outlets like Black Enterprise magazine, are going bankrupt, and you should go bankrupt. You should perish and be sacrificed on the altar of black history. You are collaborators with the white supremacist establishment. You are the enemy of black society, and you need to go bankrupt because of that. Now, they go on to quote this guy, John W. Rogers. Mike Bloomberg is an American success story, says John W. Rogers, an investor and the founder of Ariel Capital Management, the largest minority-run mutual fund firm in the country. Quote, he knows what it takes to be a successful entrepreneur. He understands the challenges and how tough it is. Rogers says he's backing Bloomberg because they share the same values about gun control, financial literacy, and the vital role black businesses play at the heartbeat of black communities. Quote, the mere fact that he's talking about I guess I meant to say talking about it. The mere fact that he's talking about it will bring great opportunities for all of us. And again, his solution is, I think, is going to be very helpful, Rogers said, adding, Bloomberg has that ability to inspire leaders to do business with black businesses. So they're letting you know that these people are already carrying the water for Bloomberg or anybody else who can cut a check. Amazing how they do that. Now, you heard that article, and I'm going to go back and dissect this a little bit more here in just a moment, but did you notice anything missing from that entire article? Apparently, they spoke to Bloomberg and only quoted him one time or one or two times, but did you notice something was missing? There was a word you didn't hear in there anywhere. You didn't hear the word reparations. You didn't hear that word come up, not even once. An entire article from supposedly historic black publication, which focuses on economics, and yet not a word Not a syllable about reparations. Just the same old, well, what are the white politicians going to peel off? Nothing about what we are owed historically as a people on the economic front, but only about, well, here's what he's willing to flick off the table. What do you think of that? Did you notice that? If Black enterprise wants to know why they are on their way to extinction, if you want to know why it is that you're on your way to bankruptcy the same way as Ebony and Jet, if you want to know why it is that a publication supposedly about enterprise is failing to conduct business, a publication supposedly about Black business is failing to conduct any business, this article illustrates clearly why that is. Rather than steering the agenda, Black Enterprise Magazine has been so badly mismanaged for decades now that they basically become political whores. And when election season comes around, don't worry, Massa, we'll be your public relations firm among the Negroes. The problem for Black Enterprise Magazine is the new Black media has much more sway than they do now. So really, all they really did was hurt themselves more than anything else. They hurt themselves far more than they helped themselves. This was cowardly. This was disgusting. And it was, quite frankly, pathetic. I mean, you didn't even make a good run of it. It was just pathetic to see this. Just pathetic. So I went and I took a look at Mike Bloomberg's Greenwood Initiative, because this is what I do. I'm one of those people, as you all know, I'm one of those guys who actually reads things. I don't leave it up to chance. I'm not one of these people who is functionally illiterate, stumbles over words like imagination or reparations, and tells people you got the data when you don't even have a grasp of literacy. If you go and check out Mike Bloomberg's Greenwood Initiative, I'm going to skip down here and get right to the nitty gritty. It says in here, Mike's plan, the Greenwood Initiative, lays out a path to the creation of 1 million new Black homeowners and 100,000 new Black-owned businesses in the next decade. His plan also includes a $70 billion investment in the country's 100 most disadvantaged neighborhoods. Brothers and sisters from around the world, the Apple Corporation, just one company, has a market cap of over $1 trillion. That's trillion with a TR. Over $1 trillion. So does Microsoft now. So does Google. So does Amazon. This guy is talking about, for 40 million Black people, he can see if he can find $70 billion. Meanwhile, they're spending trillions a year in Iraq, but telling us what they can't do for us. I want you to think about that. This is his plan he's giving us. We're going to get to a little bit later why it is that number 70 billion. We're going to get into that a little bit later, but hang with us here. Creating, the first bullet point here is creating, well, the first subsection is creating generational wealth through home ownership. Did you get that? Creating generational wealth through home ownership. So you see, they've grabbed our buzzwords. They've grabbed our vocabulary. His people have told him, you have to talk about entrepreneurship, businesses, capital, generational wealth. All these terms that you never heard from Mushmouth and Bvet and the rest of the failures in life. And by the way, just very briefly aside here, if you're living with your parents and you're 45 years old, it's one thing to do it till you get back on your feet. But if it's been 5 or 10 years and you're still living with them, this isn't a plan to get back on your feet. You're just down and out. You never heard anybody else saying this. We created this conversation. We created this vernacular. Dr. Claude Anderson laid the groundwork. We created this vernacular, and now the political establishment is responding to it. because we've been uncompromising. But this is a canard. This is smoke and mirrors. Generational wealth through home ownership. Did Bill Gates' wealth come from home ownership? So you're actually trying to sell us, you're really trying to sell us at best marginal and at worst obsolete information. It goes on to say home ownership is a vital way to build generational wealth and community and is a pillar of the American dream for many, but it's out of reach for too many Black Americans. Mike's plan aims to create 1 million new Black homeowners. Mike will close this gap by providing down payment assistance, getting millions banked and recognized by credit scoring companies, enforcing fair lending laws, reducing foreclosures and evictions, and increasing the supply of affordable housing. People, by federal law, you can't make affordable housing just for Black folks. So that one right there is smoke and mirrors. That's a bait and switch. We're going to create 1 million new Black homeowners. As a business owner myself, home ownership isn't the obstacle we face. If you're a middle-class person who wants to comfortably retire, not having to pay a mortgage can certainly help, but that's only if you believe that a home will always increase in value. And that's an absolute. The 2008 housing crash showed us that's not true. But that's what Mike Bloomberg is selling to us now. He will close the gap by providing down payment assistance. Okay, down payment assistance on what? On a home. Didn't we just establish that a home's not really an asset consistently? You can't consistently classify it as an asset. Getting millions banked. Now, the reason that so many Black folk are unbanked is because their jobs don't pay enough. And banks want to charge you for having an account. So what's he going to do about that? Not a word about this so far. How are you going to get the funds to be banked? Getting millions banked and recognized by credit scoring companies. Enforcing fair lending laws. We've been hearing that for 50 years, haven't we? Weren't we told 30 years ago that we were doing away with redlining? And here we are, 30 years after redlining was supposedly, 40 years after redlining was supposedly done away with, and we're still discussing it. Every time some politician talks about they're going to get rid of redlining and enforce fair lending laws, and all of a sudden we keep going around and around about it. So clearly that's smoke and mirrors too. Reducing foreclosures and evictions. How the hell are you going to do that? This isn't New York City where you got that rent control and eviction controls. Now he's just handing out bull crap and hoping nobody knows any better. In mid-2019, the Black home ownership rate dropped to 41%, almost 33 points below the white home ownership rate. The decline in Black home ownership has erased all of the gains made since the 1968 passage of the Fair Housing Act, a landmark legislation outlawing housing discrimination. Brothers and sisters, when Dr. Claude Anderson, the reason why we herald him as the preeminent mind on this of our time, when he told you Black people have not gotten anywhere. Every proportional comparative metric you can use in proportional terms, comparing us to white folk, we haven't moved anywhere. And now Bloomberg is telling you, by the way, when they passed the Fair Housing Act, all the gains of it, Black people have been regressed. We've been reduced. We made gains under the Fair Housing Act and under the Fair Housing Act. After it was made law, it all got taken away. The Fair Housing Act is still in effect. It's just no longer doing anything for us. Do you get that? So do you think that the answer is passing a new law? You already passed the Fair Housing Act. You claim that it gave us progress, and then you say, oh, yeah, by the way, under Barack Obama, because it was under Obama, we watched all the gains of the Fair Housing Act evaporate in 8 years. With Obama telling all of us, don't worry, in another 30 years, it'll get better. Mike's plan will address the home ownership gap by creating 1 million more Black homeowners. His plan will provide down payment assistance, get millions recognized by credit scoring companies, enforce fair lending laws, reduce foreclosures and evictions, and increase the supply of affordable housing. The plan will also aim to help millions more Black Americans open bank accounts by offering financial services through the post office and by piloting a program to provide free checking accounts to recipients of the Earned Income Tax Credit. And that's going to be something that you're going to keep hearing throughout this report. For those of us who don't have children, you're never going to see the Earned Income Tax Credit. So this is meant to appeal to all the welfare chicks or the low-income chicks. This is not meant to appeal to middle-class Black people or Black people who are not a step above the food stamp line. That's not what this is for. What I'm saying is that this is not a plan to create generational wealth. This is a plan for Bushika to get $15 an hour working for Chipotle and to hold out some pipe dream that she can buy a house based on that. Go talk to every Black female you know under the age of 40 who's buying their own house, and she works all the time. She has absolutely no free time. She struggles to keep her head above water. All of them, ALL, none of them are doing well. None of them are having an easy go of it. All of them are worked to the bone, constantly fatigued, constantly tired, constantly worn out, with people dangling this carrot of home ownership in front of them. Next section says, too many Black Americans are credit invisible. People need credit scores to qualify for mortgage loans, but through its mortgage guarantee programs, the federal government effectively requires lenders to use credit scoring models that disproportionately exclude Black Americans. As a result, millions of Black householders are credit invisible. Now, this is once again the federal government. We just told you about the Fair Housing Act. Now, with the mortgage guarantee program of the federal government, once again, the rules that they set up don't favor Black people if you're credit invisible. What we need to do is work on educating Black people to be financially literate so that they understand what credit is for, that you don't get a credit card and go to the damn Gucci store. Your mama might have been a broke, bummy broad. You don't follow in her footsteps of financial stupidity. Your daddy might have been a dollar deadbeat. You don't follow in his footsteps. That you use credit as a tool. That you use it as a tool to become credit worthy so you can borrow other people's money to purchase assets, not to purchase consumer goods. They go on to say that Mike will order federally controlled and mandated mortgage guarantors to update their credit scoring requirements, to insist that scoring models be tested for racial bias. We don't need testing for it. We already know it's there. And to encourage the use of alternative models that employ information such as bank account history, rental payments, or mobile phone payments to assess credit worthiness. People, Bushika ain't doing so good on keeping up her rent payments already, especially these chicks who switch from one phone provider to another. So just understand, this is more smoke and mirrors. There's a reason why this does not work, and it cannot work. And it's not intended to work. It's meant to be smoke and mirrors. That's what it's meant to be. It's meant to sit up here and get you distracted and to make you think that you are really controlling something when in reality you are not. You're not. And what you need to have here is an institution of empowering Black people so that we can get properly educated on these things. And I don't mean educated as in get the knowledge or the data. I mean to have actionable information. And we're going to get to that as well here. Because after I get through this crap that they're throwing at you, I'm going to tell you what you need. Next section says zoning rules which stipulate minimum lot sizes or maximum building heights to prevent the construction of affordable housing often lock minorities out of desirable neighborhoods and often were designed specifically to do so. Often lock minorities out of desirable neighborhoods. The Trump administration has been reversing efforts designed to break down such barriers to upward mobility. People, do you all think that Mike Bloomberg lives near low-income public housing? Do any of you think that Mike Bloomberg lives in a neighborhood with low-income housing, subsidized housing, Section 8? Do you think he lives near, quote, affordable housing? That's a simple question. Mike will create a housing fairness commission. Oh God, another commission. A reparations commission, a reparations committee, a fair housing commission, a fair housing committee, a police brutality commission, a police brutality committee. And what do we have to show for all these damn commissions and committees, people? They're sitting here running down for you that every time we pass a law, every time we have a commission, the commission undermines us and puts us in the worst condition than when we started. This commission will be funded with an initial $10 billion to work with municipalities and nonprofits on testing policies aimed at reversing the effects of discrimination and expanding programs that work. Now, the next section is called Investing in Black-Owned Business Growth. Now, for all of my Black entrepreneurs out there listening to this, live or recorded, I want you to listen to what Mike Bloomberg details as investing in Black-owned business growth. And to my Black business owners, or those of you who aspire, you tell me if this sounds like what white folk are doing and what works for them, or if this just sounds like some wild-eyed, off-the-cuff, cockamamie bull that somebody just pulled out of their ears. Mike's plan aims to spur the creation of more than 100,000 new Black-owned businesses, doubling their number. To boost Black-owned businesses, the plan will set up user-friendly one-stop shops for entrepreneurs across the country. Now, before we go any further, I want to stop at that first sentence there because I want you to understand the gravity of the situation that we find ourselves in as Black people. I want you to understand this. Did you hear what that first sentence said? Mike's plan aims to spur the creation of more than 100,000 new Black-owned businesses, doubling their number. Right now, in a population of over 40 million people, Black people have 100,000 businesses. Every time I have this type of discussion about how economics is the answer and entrepreneurship is what we need, you always have some dustball, usually a Black male who has spent his entire life failing, jump up and say, everybody can't be a business owner. Nobody said everybody needs to be a business owner. Other groups of people have an economic base because they have the necessary percentage of people who are business owners. And ideally, you would want that rate to be somewhere around 12, 15%. Black people's rate is like 3, 6%, depending on what your metric you're using. Everybody else, Asians and whites, are over 10%. They have an over 10% business ownership rate. Think about that for just a few moments. I want you to let that sink in, because that's not a game and that's not a joke. When you have 40 million people and only 100,000 Black-owned businesses, most of them are sole proprietorships and they're just self-employed, which means there's only one person working for it, you, the business owner. Folks, that's not good. That's not good. A population of 40 million people and only 100,000 of you have the ability to create your own economic base. That's not good. That's the core of the problem. Everybody else is prioritizing their own people. When it's time to hire, their own people get the sweetheart deals. Their own people are first hired, last fired. When you're Black, you're last hired, first fired. You'll be the lowest paid. They jerk around with your hours. You don't get promoted. You don't get a raise. Where you enter the job is where you stay. That's the problem. We live in a supposed free market capitalist society, but Black people, once you get into it, it's already predetermined the limits of what you can do. When you own your own economic base, you have liberated yourself from those limits. And that's why the terms of the discussion have to be precise and accurate. Otherwise, you keep us chasing phantoms. They go on to say, to boost Black-owned businesses, the plan will set up user-friendly one-stop shops for entrepreneurs across the country, expand mentorships and incubators, increase access to capital, support Black-owned banks, and expand procurement from Black-owned businesses. Now, did you hear the trick bag again? To boost Black-owned businesses, the plan will set up user-friendly one-stop shops for entrepreneurs across the country. Notice it did not say for Black entrepreneurs. Don't worry, we're going to set up entrepreneur incubators that will favor the future Mark Zuckerbergs and the future Andrew Yangs. Now, Black folk are going to be left disproportionately left out. So just see how he already is slipping this in, and he keeps doing this. So they can go back later and say, well, it worked exactly the way we wrote it. You know, just too bad it didn't help y'all, but reelect me. We'll see if we can catch you the next time coming around. We're not playing that game anymore. The next section says, Black Americans own only a little more than 100,000 businesses. Mike will aim to nearly double that number to 200,000 businesses. His plan includes setting up user-friendly one-stop shops for entrepreneurs across the country, expanding mentorships and incubators, increasing access to capital, both debt and equity, supporting Black-owned banks, and boosting procurement from Black-owned businesses. These efforts are aimed particularly at benefiting Black women entrepreneurs, the fastest growing group for new entrepreneurs, people, but the majority of Black entrepreneurs are Black men. The largest segment is Black men. So he's telling you he's coming into office for the purposes of attacking Black men, because if he was making this law for Jews like himself, would Jewish people sit up here and let you make something that says we're going to have something that prioritizes Jewish women? The women would be in revolt and say, no, is this for everybody, or we don't want it? You're not going to pit the women against the men. So he's already telling you, well, look here, if welfare doesn't promote this, we can appeal to Black women's. There's been this treacherous culture that's been cultivated since the AFDC food stamps welfare establishment. And we'll see if we can exacerbate that more. So the females will get more assistance than the men. The females will get more benefits than the men. So he's already letting you know we're going to give it to 6% of the population, the Black women, and they'll only get a small portion of that, so it won't even be 6%. But we're already going to make sure that this is going to be used as a tool, a $70 billion investment tool to pit black women against black men and see if we can make them more treacherous than they've already been, and see if we can, if the government can fund it. And oh yeah, the black men who are really making things pop off out here, oh yeah, you don't get nothing. We're going to make sure you don't get anything because you constitute a threat to the system. We're going to encourage black women to compete against black men, not against white women. But black men compete against white men. That's why we're not going to do anything for you. So already they're setting up the trick bag and making it known. So as far as I'm concerned, Bloomberg can go to hell and kiss my ass on the way there for even trying something like this. But we'll read the rest of it here. In the next section, it says, Black-owned businesses account for only 2% of financings under the Small Business Administration Small Business Investment Company Program. We are 13%, 14% of the population and own 100,000 businesses, but only 2% of the SBA's financing. Most of you don't understand why that is. A lot of you think that all government agencies work the same. And since a lot of you are raised by hateful bastard baby makers whose only contact with the federal government has been the charity wing, food stamps, welfare, and Section 8, you haven't encountered any other departments of the government. But the truth of the matter is the charity departments of the government, there's only a few of those. The rest of them are made to bring in money, with some notable exceptions, Department of Defense. But the rest of them are made to bring in, I guess that one does bring in money because it does colonize places. So yeah, the rest of them are made to bring in money. For example, the post office. The post office brings in money. That's not a place where you get charity. The post office works like Walmart. You go in and you purchase things. The Small Business Administration is run like a private bank. They want to see your credit score. They want to see your assets. They want to see your balance sheet. They want to see your financial standing. You don't just go in and say, hey, I got a good idea and a business plan. And a lot of you have been sold on the erroneous misnomer that that's what they do. That's a highly mistaken notion that Black people have, that all you do is get somebody to write a proposal or for a quote grant, and then the money falls from the sky. No, you have to go to them like Chase Bank or any other bank. The requirements that they put on you to get a loan from them are the same as any private bank. For those of you who didn't know. So if you're wondering why the SBA has never done Black people any good, it's because it's just another bank, just like the others, complete with its racial biases. They go on to say that Mike, they keep calling him Mike, will provide incentives for private investors to focus on underrepresented groups and underserved communities. Did you get that? So they start off by saying Black-owned businesses account for only 2% of financing under the SBA's Small Business Investment Company Program. So they started off by saying Black-owned businesses. The problem is Black-owned businesses. Next thing they say, Mike will provide incentives for private investors to focus on underrepresented groups and underserved communities. So that was the trick bag right there. You low down, dirty, cross-faced bastard, Mike Bloomberg. This son of a motherless dog isn't even being coy about it. He starts off Black-owned businesses. These two things are unrelated, people. It's in the same paragraph, but understand, in its execution, these are unrelated. That's why when he got to what he will do, listen to the parts when you hear them when they say what they will do, not what they'll aim to do. Because when it said for doubling the number of Black businesses, it said Mike will aim to nearly double that number. All of a sudden, there's a bunch of qualifiers. But when it comes to the SBA, something that as the president, he would directly control, and there are no excuses. And by the way, you all should all really be looking at Barack Obama sideways, because when he was running the government, he helped the SBA disinvest in black people, by the way. So all you cornballs and idiots who were supporting him, all you dead enders, you have yourselves to blame for this also. Now, he starts off by saying black-owned businesses account for 2% of financings under the SBA. Mike will provide incentives for underrepresented groups and underserved communities. So you think that because he began the paragraph by talking about the low number of black-owned businesses to get SBA financing, that when obviously you would make the assumption, well, he just said he just quoted a statistic about black-owned businesses. So that must be who he's referring to when he says underrepresented groups and underserved communities. People, that's a damn lie. He's not referring to black people. He's talking about Latinos, LGBT, white women, illegals. I mean, the bait and switch is vicious in this one. Now, listen to what it says again. This even goes even further and says, for example, his plan would promote partnerships with university incubator programs that could offer added SBIC support for startups in nearby distressed neighborhoods. People, he only mentioned black people when he talked about the statistic. When he talked about what he will do, all of a sudden he ain't doing a damn thing for niggas. All of a sudden it's about underrepresented groups, underserved communities, distressed neighborhoods, marginalized people, minorities. He only quotes us when he talks about statistics, but when he talks about what the plan is, okay, black people are really suffering. The plan is to help everybody. And if there's anything left over for you niggas, well, there you go. They go on to say, and black-owned businesses can't get the credit they need to expand. Studies consistently find that they experience higher denial rates and pay higher interest rates when they do get loans. The government doesn't gather the data needed to adequately monitor bias in business lending. Meanwhile, assets are dwindling at black-owned banks, which tend to focus on black communities. Brothers and sisters from around the world, black-owned banks struggle because white folk aren't going to do business there, and a bank needs a thriving economic base with which to get deposits from. If the folk you're dealing with are poor, it's going to be very difficult to get them to put in $100,000, $200,000. That's going to be very hard to happen. Now, remember the thing about Banking Black and Killer Mike during the last election? That's all great and good. We need to continue that. But just understand, the root cause is because if the black community as a group is poor, black banks don't have a base of depositors to challenge the Chase banks and whatnot, or at least to survive in their presence. They go on to say that Mike will support black-owned banks by increasing federal deposits and by providing a streamlined process to qualify as CDFIs, allowing them to issue government-guaranteed bonds whose proceeds can be used for community investments. He will also require financial institutions to report data on small business lending, including relevant characteristics of borrowers such as race and gender, as mandated in the Dodd-Frank Act of 2010. Race and gender. Here comes your LGBT. Here comes your feminists. So he tells you he's going to help black-owned banks and then slips in a line that allows them to not do anything for black people. Next section is investing $70 billion in the neighborhoods that need it most. Due to generations of systemic discrimination, too many Black Americans grow up and live in neighborhoods where health, education, and employment outcomes are unacceptably low. Every American should have an equal shot at success. Every American. Now, did you get that? Every American should have an equal shot at success. He does this over and over again. He starts off every paragraph quoting some statistic or observation specifically about Black people. And then immediately after that, okay, you quote the problem, what you gonna do? Well, every American should have an equal shot at success. So he starts off talking about us, and he tries to see if he can pull the bait and switch, pull the wool over your eyes. And as soon as he finished talking about you, okay, let's get back to talking about every American. So this is Kamala Harris by a little runt who thinks that he is slickly rephrasing it and repackaging it, and that this will work better. Goes on to say, Mike will launch a $70 billion national initiative to identify and turn around 100 of the country's most disadvantaged neighborhoods. It will invest in 100 communities over 5 years to tackle the neighborhood conditions that perpetuate poverty and exclude the historically disadvantaged from growth and opportunity. The plan will orient all federal human-serving agencies with an equity framework that is place-based and evidence-based, using rigorous evaluation to expand what works and discontinue what doesn't. People, Mike Bloomberg is a white supremacist, and this is simply attempting to repackage white supremacy. This is an economic plan for white supremacy. Plain and simple. I'm going to read this last part because I'm not going to read the rest of this stuff. I'm just not. But I want you to understand what this says. It goes on to say that addressing systemic discrimination, segregation, and social and civic barriers. Black Americans have been disproportionately incarcerated, politically disenfranchised, and subject to systemic discrimination. Mike will defend the rights of protected groups under the law by reinvigorating and reorienting the Civil Rights Division of the Justice Department. People, when Mike Bloomberg was the mayor of New York, did he protect Black people? We can show you where he protected illegal aliens who work in his businesses. We can show you where he protected illegals. We can show you where he protected LGBT. Now he's trying to bring this trick bag and this smoke and mirrors to Black folk as a presidential platform. He keeps doing this over and over. Every paragraph starts the same. He starts by specifically referencing Black people, and then in the very next sentence says, so what we'll do is we will defend the rights of protected groups. We said we want to have specific benefits specifically for Black people. And he's letting you know, hell no. Not doing anything specifically for you. We'll defend the rights of protected groups, illegals, LGBT, white feminists. There you go, people. There you go. He goes on to say he will shed light on discriminatory practices by requiring companies to report on hiring, pay, and procurement, and collecting more complete lending data. Furthermore, Mike's plan ties federal housing funding to progress in reducing segregation, requires implicit bias training for police, teachers, and federal contractors, and restores voting rights by addressing practices such as ID requirements, roll purging, and gerrymandering. People, I wanted to read that to you there because that is the plan that Black Enterprise Magazine was doing backflips about and telling you was so great and so wonderful. What I just read to you, and there's more, I mean, it just keeps going in the same vein. But what I just read to you all, did that sound to you all like a plan that Asians used or that whites used? Does that sound like a plan? Because it's not. So let me tell you what a plan looks like. Number one, you find black businesses, or you take black businesses, and there should be simply a threshold for them. If you are a sole proprietorship and your 5-year average is 3 or 4 times the black median income, then you should be first in line for investment. You should be first in line for investment and specific access to capital. And remember, I outlined this a week ago about how that needs to work. Your investment banks need to be compelled to invest. If they try to say you don't know enough, then they need to stick you with a mentor, and there should be penalties if you are not brought up to code. If they just try to stick you with a mentor and, okay, well, he won't learn anything, but we got the government off our backs. No, not really. Not really. Right now, you're spending trillions a year in Iraq. That money needs to be spent specifically with black entrepreneurs who have demonstrated that they can produce results. Those results should be confirmed by the IRS and by your credit data. If you got, by the credit data, I'm referring to if you got a bunch of debt and you're getting ready to go out of business, we don't need to give you anything, but to the people who their tax records show, hey, I can bring home the bacon. I'm not guessing my way through this. I know what I'm doing. Problem is, unlike my white and Asian counterparts, our capital is restricted. Those tax dollars that black folk pay need to be reinvested in that. And then what you will have is a black entrepreneurial class. Contrary to popular belief, most black business owners are not coons and sellouts, contrary to popular belief. But what we lack in black society, and this is something I've talked about before, black society doesn't simply lack business owners. We lack power brokers. That's the problem. And what tends to happen is niggas want to go on an ego trip. So when you end up with somebody like a Bill Cosby, who has to go through a white company like NBC, he sets it up so, yeah, he could have been a power broker, but he goes on an ego trip. You still got dumb niggas today still running around talking about, he helped black folks in the entertainment business. Get the hell out of here. And what happens is you end up with somebody like Eddie Murphy, who in that environment, he just ends up looking out for himself. There need to be penalties for black folk who become affluent and look out only for themselves. There need to be penalties for that. And the benefits need to flow to those who take care of the business of the people. But you need power brokers for that. You need power brokers. You need individuals like your Goldman Sachs and your Merrill Lynch's and your Facebooks and whatnot. Individuals who've got substantial amounts of power and wealth and are able to, they will be the ones in charge of developing the community. They will be the ones in charge of developing the society because their interests lay with the society. That's what we're missing. We don't need to have some hand-picked Negroes chosen by Mike Bloomberg or a bunch of aspiring Negro bedwenches being given free money from the SBA so that they can turn around and attack black society and black men. That's not what we need. We need a power broker class And the United States government is real good about developing that in nations around the world. When it comes to black folk, all of a sudden they don't know what to do. But what we need are black power brokers. The new black media is flush with people who can do that kind of thing. And there are others. We're far from the only ones. Here at the Black Channel, there are a bunch of y'all who own businesses. Your truck drivers, your nurses, you got janitorial, you got industrial, your mechanics, your IT personnel. There's a bunch of you out there that you have the raw tools in place, but because of systemic racism and generational poverty, you don't have the capital necessary to take that to the next level. So you never get the ability to get raised up. Because right now, what you have are generational coons. That's the problem we run into. Byron Allen, Russell Simmons, Bill Cosby. These are folks who look out for themselves and don't look out for anybody else. They were specifically handpicked and chosen by white corporations because these guys knew, hey, Bill got a taste for white women. Russell Simmons got one. Byron Allen for show. They're not going to do anything. So what they do is they filter out people who are actually that they are activist investors, activist entrepreneurs. They try to filter you out. They want a bunch of selfish niggas who are only concerned about themselves, but they try to filter out everybody else. That's what needs to stop. That we get judged on results so that we're no longer held back. So the capital goes to those who are actually going to reinvest. And this is not going to do that. This is a trick bag. This is going to maintain the status quo. This isn't going to change anything. Well, I mean, it will change in some ways. It'll change it for the worse. You'll have a bunch of bedwenches talking about they're strong and independent. And meanwhile, they got their money from the government, but telling you they're strong and independent until they go out of business. And that's what happens. As Black people, I want you to recognize we're not going to let them hijack our language and then spin it with the same old bait and switch. This damn Greenwood initiative is a piece of crap. It's dead on arrival. We're already fitted it for its coffin. Services are being held as we speak. Go bury this bastard. The Greenwood Initiative is a farce and a fraud. But it does reveal one thing. The bad guys have been listening. The bad guys have been put on notice, and they understand the issue is economics. They understand it. That's why they're trying to circumvent it. Now they're switching to trying to use legalese and lawyer tactics. Okay, we will preface our statement by mentioning specifically Black people, but when it gets to the action part of the statement, then it's going to be for everybody. See, the problem was Kamala Harris should have made it clear she was specifically addressing Black folk, but see, the putting the spin on it, putting that little trick bag in there. The trick of it is, yeah, when it's time to talk about what you do, don't mention them. So you have a plan specifically aimed at Black people that is only going to help, quote, everybody. People, they know full damn well what's going on. They know full damn well that if you're a Black person, let's be clear about a couple of things here. Let me go ahead and lay the nitty gritty on y'all here. Black people are the only honest entrepreneurs in the world. Did you get that? Black people are the only true entrepreneurs and the only true business people in the world. Did you know that? I'm not saying that as hyperbole. I'm not saying that as a metaphor or a figure of speech. I mean what I said. Black people are the only true business people because if you see a Black man who is making $1 million a year consistently, you know that he knows what he's doing and he got it honestly. He doesn't have generational wealth to give him freebies and unearned benefits. He doesn't have institutional wealth in the family to give him a leg up. He doesn't have that. If he got it, he had to get it all on his own. And if it didn't fall apart after the first year, then it wasn't no fluke. He really knows what he's doing because he gets no help from anybody. Not the banks, not the government, not venture capital firms, nobody. If you see a Black person with a thriving business, you know they earned it from the bottom to the top. They didn't get any help. As a matter of fact, they had a hellified bunch of obstacles they had to get over that absolutely nobody else ever would have encountered. But they were able to figure out, just to show how ingenious we are, they were able to figure out a way to get around that. And then had to do it all legally. See, white folk can bribe their way through things. Shout out Lori Loughlin and Felicity Huffman and all the other rich white folks out there in California who were able to pay for their kids to get into college and enhance their children's business ventures. Your kids didn't have to earn a damn thing. It was given to them. When you're Black, you are first generation wealth or first generation money. Nobody gave you anything. There was no community to help give you an unfair advantage or a leg up. You had to get it on your own. And if you actually survived in the business, you had to know what you were doing. Otherwise, the stuff would have fallen apart in the first year. When you're Black, you have to actually know. When you're white, you have a bunch of safety nets and precautions and safety systems to protect you from your ignorance. Do you know how hard you got to work to fail when you're white? You know how hard you got to work to fail when you're Asian? When you're Black, do you know how hard you have to work to succeed? Black businesses are the only businesses that it is guaranteed 100% if that business is succeeding, that's a person who knows it and has actually earned it. With these other people, we don't know. And many times it's confirmed that they don't. Take a look at most of your Fortune 500 companies today. Are they run by people who actually know? Not really. Apple has been milking one good idea, the iPhone. They've been milking it now for almost a decade since Steve Jobs died. They've been milking it forever. They're not stupid. They know. They're not stupid. They know. They know that they don't really deserve it, but they got control of it. As Black people, when folks start talking to us seriously about giving us the same thing, then we can talk to them. But the first thing I want to lay on you is for Black businesses, we're the only ones who get what we get honestly. Everybody else can get it by hook, by crook, by stealing patents and ideas from Black people. Everybody else can steal. We can't do that. You steal, them people coming to get you. They're going to wait till you make a few million, then they're going to come get you. So they can make sure you're down and out. That's what they do. But as Black people, if you see a Black person who is successful, you know that that person earned it. Now, I don't agree with every successful Black person. But if they're Black and they got it, they earned it. Now, whether they turn into coons or bedwenches is a different story, but they earned it. There was no Black privilege they could rely on or Black generational wealth that they could go begging for and appeal to. You don't get to make 10 mistakes when you're Black. You don't get to pick yourself up over and over again. If you're Black, you get one shot. If you get an idea that works, man, that's the only one you're going to get. You're not going to get 3 or 4 chances. You're going to get one. America and white society does not offer first chances to Black people, much less second chances. So if a Black person succeeds, that is because they overcame a hellified minefield of obstacles. and were somehow, some way able to make it work and learn the game, even though the game is rigged against them. Now, Mike Bloomberg's initiative, Mike Bloomberg, you're out of this already, so I'm not really addressing you because there's literally nothing you could say that will get us to listen to you now because we don't trust you. But to all the other candidates and the politicians listening and the political operatives listening and whatnot, I want you to understand what we're talking about here. The problem with Bloomberg's little initiative, Bloomberg's little scam plan, is you didn't name a high enough number. That's the first real problem. See, this is why you need Black entrepreneurship. This is why you need that. See, you've got a business owner who is used to negotiation. And right now, what he is doing is he's attempting to engage in a negotiation for the Black vote. He doesn't really want to give us what we want, but he's got no choice but to deal with us. So what he's doing is what you do in business, where they say he's trying to lowball us. He's trying to give us his lowest bid. Because you see, you have to understand, here's the problem for him. And here's the advantage for us. We got the option of getting up and walking away from the table. See, Bloomberg can't do that. He's got to run this thing. He wants to put $100 million of his own money into it. He's got to run this thing. He's got to run it. So he doesn't have the option of saying, okay, screw it. But just understand, we as Black people in this negotiation, we have the option of saying we will not compromise. Now, right now, he wants to see if we'll settle for something different. Let me see if we can lowball you here. We know you're not used to actually getting anything. Okay, I'm acknowledging what you're saying. I'm acknowledging you want Black businesses. I'm acknowledging this, that, and the other. Okay, well, we can't give you everything you talking about, but let's see if we can try doing something else here. And they want to see if we're going to go for the bait. So he's throwing his lowest offer out there first to see if we're going to bite on it, to see if we're going to go for it, to see just how desperate we are and how easily distracted we can be. And I'm here to tell you all, he ain't said no numbers yet. $70 billion, and then he ain't even talking about cutting the check. He's talking about $70 billion in the form of, whoa, hold up, player. It needs to be in the form of cash money. We ain't fooling all this programs and, oh, you go jump through this hurdle and then go hop this river and this stream and fill out this stack of paperwork and then go dance on this street corner for 30 minutes and then go see my man Rollo at 4. No. When you're dealing with your people, you cut the check. When you come to us, you gonna cut the check. And the check ain't gonna be $70 billion. You're not gonna give us the runaround about businesses and, oh, if we can just home ownership and all this old crap. More programs that you'll find out later whether or not it actually works or not. Money works up front. Did you hear me, one? Money works up front. It works up front. We ain't got to worry or question whether or not that's going to work. That works up front. So what he's doing is what you do when you're a shrewd business person. He's trying to fling a low ball figure out there and see if we going to bite. He's trying to fling a low ball figure, and they co-opted Black Enterprise magazine to get them to sugarcoat the poison pill to see if we would take it seriously. And we're just letting them know we're kicking this back out the damn gate from the beginning. Mike Bloomberg is not the most unpopular candidate running among Black people simply because of stop and frisk. It's because we know we can't trust him. And Black Enterprise magazine is not going to be able to sit up here and sugarcoat that. So I want you all to understand what you were reading here and whatnot. Yeah, they heard our language. They're trying to use some of our language, use some of our slang and vernacular, as it were, cut the check, generational wealth. They know the vocabulary and they know what we want, which is why he's seeing, can he throw a token out there and see if we'll go for that? What he's betting is that we're like the Black Lives Matter crowd. And I can understand why he would think that, because they have tried to make the association that the A-dunts, the mush mouths, the B-vet, the basement bum B-vets of the world, that's who represents us. No, you're dealing with the business people. You're dealing with the folk who money ain't a new thing. You see, that's why you got to be very, very leery about people who hate on black folk whose money is straight. I'm not talking about black people who accidentally got their money together. Black folk whose money is legitimately straight. Don't let, and who are able to replicate it over and over again. The broke folk are going to go for whatever crumbs are tossed off the table. That's why as soon as they said HR 40, the broke folk and A-dunts and the rest of the mushmouth idiots were talking about, yeah, we won, we here, we got it. Reparations, we made it. But the business people over here in Intelligent Black Society from the very first day, I said, no, that's not it. Then the activists, the basement bums, and all of them had to do a 180 and say, oh, hell, we couldn't fool them. Well, this isn't going to fool us either. Mike Bloomberg is a billionaire businessman, but you're trying to talk to Jason Black. I'm a businessman also. I can read, I can write, I can count. I know what creates residual income and a return on investment, and this ain't it. I also know what we're owed, and this ain't it. I also know what you're doing. You're trying to co-opt our language to think, hey, brother, we speak, oh, don't give no brother talk. Let's see the numbers. Well, here are the numbers, 70 billion. If you don't get the hell out of here with this mess, come back when we talk in trillions. They just made a battleship or a battleship after a black military man. Professor Truth put up a post about that on Twitter. Man, do you realize that there's our budget right there? All these aircraft carriers you all want to build, those things cost tens and hundreds of billions of dollars. That's our budget right there. That's our budget right there. Don't tell me what you ain't got. You just don't want to spend it where it needs to be done. There's our budget right there. If you can coerce businesses to adopt a LGBT agenda and let men come to work wearing dresses, then damn it, you can tell them that they need to mentor black folk in business, and we're going to measure and monitor their progress. You can get it done. The problem is that's not what you're trying to do, because you understand immediately the very next day, we're going to go into competition against you. That's why you don't want to entertain that. Let's just be very, very clear. You ain't going to lowball us. You're not going to throw some lowball figure out there and we're going to jump on it. This is a message to Bloomberg and everybody else. Elizabeth Warren, your HBCU plan, heifer, you can hop on your broomstick and ride out of here like Bewitched. Nobody's going for that, and your poll numbers show it. Bernie Sanders, Medicare for all, ignorance for none. Get the hell out of here. You ain't going to hustle your way through that. Joe Biden, you already had your 3 strikes. You're out. You can go grab the fossils of the old black media. Walmart can bring bowling ball head Martin, truck him into Bentonville, Arkansas, and have him speak at all the meetings you want to. Let me make this very clear to you all in no uncertain language, since you want to glum onto our slang so much. Let me just say this to you in no uncertain language. Them niggas ain't got no pull. Not anymore. Them niggas ain't pulling no weight. Nobody's listening to them. They take their cues from this microphone. And even though YouTube has been trying to suppress my channel lately, they're not recommending it to people. They're trying to suppress the views on it and whatnot. We still trucking. We still trucking. We still moving. We still making it happen. You ignore us at your own peril. And by the way, at this point, the horses are already out the gate. It's too late for all that. The horses are already out the gate. It's a done deal. It's a done deal. The billionaires are responding because they recognize we've gotten the society on code. And everyone is adopting the narrative. Now, what they want to see, they're used to dealing with bum niggas, mush mouths, and other assorted destitute bums. And if they had told them, well, here's a plan for $70 billion, they would have jumped on it and took it. Oh, this is good. I got the data. I did the number 70 billion. This is good. And Dusty Darity, Professor Baby Bonds, with his Gerber Baby Bonds program, he would have jumped on that and been like, oh, this is very good right here. This is very good. No, you're dealing with the business folk. We ain't struggling like that. We know the numbers and we know results. I don't talk about data. I talk about results. And we know what those are supposed to be. And this isn't it. So as far as I'm concerned, the Democrats, y'all can just write off 2020. Clearly, you didn't take it seriously. So let me say this to you in no uncertain terms. You thought you were going to call our bluff. You thought you were going to confuse us. You thought you were going to have us arguing over whether the number should be 70 billion or 75 billion. The number is going to be tens of trillions at least. So let me say this clearly. You can hang it up in 2020. We're going to make an example out of you this year. Because you didn't take the hint in 2016 and 2018. You didn't take the hint. You thought we were joking. You thought we were all going to be standing at the Supreme Court with Byron Allen and that you were going to have us sufficiently distracted. You found out the hard damn way. No, it's not going that way. So in 2020, you've told us what you're going to do. Now we're going to tell you what we're going to do. We're going to make an example out of you, an example out of all of you, to make it clear to everyone it's a new day. Ain't going to be no bait and switch. You're not going to throw crumbs out there and we're going to jump on it. You are not going to ask us what do we want and we don't have an answer. We have the answers. We know what we want. And you're not going to get us to settle for crumbs. You took your shot at it. Now we're taking ours. If you are new here to the Black Channel, welcome to the Haven of Intelligent Black Thought. We do this every weekend. Over 87,000 subscribers and rising, despite YouTube's best attempts to hobble our growth. If you haven't checked in with us in a while, please check your subscriber status. Make sure you are subscribed. And also check your notifications to make sure that you have that turned on for notifications as well. They keep trying to implement hurdles to it. And let's be very, very clear about this. I don't do this because I want to promote YouTube as much as I want to have a central place where we're aggregated so people can see the numbers and so that we can see the numbers so that you all can understand this is not a little thing. Make sure that you're subscribed and make sure when you click the yellow notification bell that you have it set for all notifications. I want you to join us every weekend where you get the insights and analysis that you can simply receive nowhere else. Our goal was to change the national narrative regarding Black people. Our goal was to establish a clearly concise and articulated Black agenda, and we have begun succeeding in that work. We started to see the fruits of our labor, and the political establishment is responding accordingly. We didn't have this 10 years ago. We're starting to get it now. We still got a ways to go. This is not the beginning of the end. This is just the end of the beginning. If you haven't been to our website, blackchannelfilms.com, that is blackchannelfilms.com, go and check out our documentary work, which helped to steamroll, or which helped to snowball all of this in the first place, and to steamroll the old Black media. 7 a.m., the historic documentary that started it all and said that the answer for Black society's problems is economics and entrepreneurship. Gentrified, ethnic cleansing American style, which demonstrated the folly of not listening to economics and entrepreneurship is the answer. And our newest film, Race War, which is just showing you the fallout from everything. blackchannelfilms.com. You want to go there and join us for this Black History Month. Call two friends, call two enemies, call a coon, call a white supremacist. Get them the gift of Black empowerment. blackchannelfilms.com. And this concludes tonight's broadcast of the BlackChannel.net radio program. I am your host, your brother, your humble servant, the Black Authority. And until next time, my brothers and my sisters from around the world, remember, Black is the future, and the future is uncompromising.